Yeah. So our next speaker today will be Gianni, and Gianni is the International Project Officer and EU Affair Officer at Toscana Life Sciences. And today Gianni is going to talk to us a little bit about Regions4PerMed. So Gianni, I will hand over to you now.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm speaking, but without the support of a PowerPoint presentation. As the update that I need to give it to you is it regards the specific aspects that we are just now analyzing within the Regions4PerMed project. So Regions4PerMed project, we can say that is a complementary project to Sapphire, and we also deal with the role that European regions have to play in the implementation of personalized medicine. Sorry, I have a background noise.
Yes, sorry. Could everyone who's attending please mute their microphone?
Okay. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Gary. As I was saying, the Regions4PerMed is analyzing in this stage the role that European regions have to play and need to play to support the support industry, to support the development of new innovation, to support the creation of companies, to support the competitiveness of our companies in Europe. We have tackled this issue through an international conference which took place last year in September and it was organized by Saxony region in Germany, and then we have gathered all the outcomes of the conference, and we have organized a stakeholder with regional authorities and regional representatives and regional stakeholders in last April, on the 28th of April and 19th of May, to discuss with them which are the main aspects, which are the main challenges that industries are facing, and where European regions can come really useful. I'm really glad that my presentation comes off after the presentation of Valérie Daussen from Biomarker commercialization project, because some of the issues that the project is tackling are really at the core and have been also discussed within our workshop. And so I was very interesting, and I started browsing the website while the Dr. Daussen was speaking, because I think there might be a lot of room for collaboration. Anyway, just to give you a few inputs from these workshops, as I believe after my speech there is a discussion that we need to start. The topics that were asked to the European region to somehow tackle can be summarized like as follows. So the first is risk capital. Sometimes, especially when it comes the clinical development of innovation in the biomedical market, there is an adequate funds, adequate schemes that can finance this the development of this kind of innovation. We have surveyed we have several regions, and in most of them there isn't any measure, there isn't any public, let's say, not funded, but also public supported or public endorsed a scheme that can be helpful for this kind of needs. The second one is that also the financing that usually comes from regional authorities, let's say regional environments usually do not. Although we understand that for industries is really important, the partnership, the collaboration with the public entities, public research entities, hospitals, and so on and so forth. Sometimes the regional schemes do not provide rooms for collaboration. So the rules for presenting a project proposal, the rules for accessing grants and accessing finance are too often not in favor of collaboration. In many regions, if for example, we go to the biggest European network for funding personalized medicine, which is the ERA-PerMed, there many regions who participate do not have in place any rule for collaboration between public and private sector, for collaboration of small and medium-sized enterprises with public research entities. And this is an aspect that is critical especially for small and medium-sized enterprises, because although there are sometimes collaboration in place and they lack some fundings to bring on the market their products and their services, they cannot exploit these kind of networks. This also leads to a third topic, which has been found critical, and it is the private-public partnerships. I believe that the pandemic has made it clear that public-private partnership need to be vital, need to be endorsed, need to be pushed at all different levels, especially at the regional level, where there are very often active scientific communities and active industrial communities which are cooperating underneath the surface, but the regional policy programs, the regional funding schemes do not discourage sometimes this kind of innovation, this kind of collaboration. And the fourth topic, which has been already touched by Dr. Valérie Dussène before me, it's technology transfer services. This is really important especially for university spin-offs, research center spin-offs, which, as already she stated, they completely lack any knowledge of how to approach strategically the development of innovation with a view of the market. And one of the things that has surfaced during the conversation, during the discussion, is the role that specific organization like bioincubators, cluster organization are playing in this context, because we have found out that these kind of organizations are providing technology transfer services, are providing business training, let's say, which is also fundamental for especially startups and small and medium-sized enterprises to remain competitive and think more strategically how to valorize and exploit their innovation on the market, where the competitiveness is European, international, and most often global. So and all private and all big and small sized companies that we have invited to join our activities have highlighted how this kind of organization are being proven to be helpful, are being proven to be supportive, and somehow they should be, let's say, even more. I mean, the creation of these organizations should be even more supported, even more endorsed by regional and national level. The last thing that also surfaced, but this is a topic which is always on the background when we talk about personalized medicine is access to data. All the private, big and small and medium-sized companies are asking to regional authorities to invest in interregional infrastructure for data collection and data management, and they are asking to provide a framework which is GDPR compliant and ethical compliant to access this data, because especially for small companies, the kind of value that they can receive from these infrastructures is vital for their research and for the development of their innovation. Especially big companies are also willing to co-invest in this kind of activities. We have in Tuscany, we have some good example from, for example, from Roche, which has started to cooperate with the Tuscany regional government in kind to support the market, to support the clinical development of some promising products, and also to build some shared repository which will be completely managed by the public, but they're putting there the expertise because they know that collaboration is vital, so they are putting all their experts on around the table to help the regional government to structure let's say a shared data repositories that can be then used by researchers, by companies, and by innovators to, let's say, implement and to carry out more research and innovation activities. So that's it. I would like just to close providing a day, one big event, the dates of and the details of one big event that we are organizing together also with the support of Sapphire. Since the European regions are at the core of personalized medicine and the implementation of personalized medicine, we are organizing a conference at the European Parliament on December 1st this year, hopefully in person. So perhaps we could use, through the Sapphire, we could provide all the stakeholders of Sapphire, all the participants, some information to gather the regional authorities. So hopefully within this meeting, there are regional stakeholders and regional authorities that are willing to join and participate, and we will be happy to provide this information right after the meeting.
Yeah, thanks, Gianni. So the Regions4PerMed webinar on the personalizing health industry, I suppose you will have some reports available.
Yes. Yes, sorry, I forgot to mention, of course, all the outcome of the conference, all the outcome of the two workshops that have been taking place are now being edited in a structured report. The report will also have best practices that we have gathered, like similar to the policy platform that Mark Patterson showcased at the beginning, because both Regions4PerMed but also Sapphire have interjected the spirit of Interreg Europe. So we will also have these best practices. The expected date for releasing the report is early September. Maybe we will manage before, but that is when the report is due.
Okay, thanks. So Kathleen has a question for you, I think.
Yes, thank you very much, Gianni. It was a very nice overview. Something that we have struggled with as well is, even though sometimes taken into account that you have sufficient budget and funding and the TTO is all in place, etc., and there's an incubator, sometimes it is difficult to have novel approaches to be taken up in the healthcare professionals area. So how do you have ideas on how we can encourage that? Because it is it is a special environment also, because they are not in an experiment, so they are not they are there to help people, and there's little room. They are under time pressure, etc. So it's difficult for innovative interventions to be taken up sometimes. But do you have ideas how we can encourage the uptake?
So before I answer, I want to make sure that I got the question correctly. So you're asking how to encourage innovative approaches from, let's say, from the public perspective. So like how the regions can create schemes that support innovative or are like more functioning in supporting innovative approaches, or you're saying that there is a lack of innovation coming from the research or from the industrial sector, and so we should find, I mean, how we could suggest a scheme to support innovation coming from the research side, from the industrial side.
No, it is the uptake in real life in a hospital. So how, because the people that are using the tools are not there to do the research. They are there to use something that is solid and works. So sometimes it is sometimes there are novel biomarkers or novel things that can be used, but they are not sufficiently taken up in clinical practice, in fact. So how can we overcome that sort of issue as well?
Okay, okay, I understand. So in giving your other, I mean, I'll try to give this answer, but I'm biased. So I'm opening because we have a model that works. We have created a model in our foundation. So this is something that can definitely, and I will discuss with our colleague from Saxony, if we can have a section like this in the report, if we can highlight this from the presentation we've had. But just to give you an example of a model that we believe it's working, it's the model that we have created here in Tuscany, which is called Office for the Valorization of Biomedical Research. Basically, it's around network expertise that has to be put in the same organization. So what we do is to provide the Tuscany region, and by the Tuscany region, I mean all the clinical research hospitals and all the hospitals of regions with this kind of expertise. So, and we as a nature work closely with the private companies, we work closely with the private research center. So what we do is we have created a chamber where all the innovation that comes from the private can be immediately linked to the clinical setting. And inside we have intellectual property experts. We have we have biologists with the clinical background working in our offices, and they evaluate the goodness of the research of the innovation of a biomarker, for example. They support then the clinical partners in setting up all the required measures to uptake this innovation in the clinical settings, included the ethical committee, because sometimes everything passes through the approval of an ethical committee to set up a small study. And in this office, we also have people who interact with the ethical committees, explain the innovation, explain the ethical burden. So all the aspects connected to the clinical uptake are included in this. And for our real nature, since we come from the private sector and we work with the industry, we are really good at connecting these with the clinical setting. So I think this can be used as a best practices, and we are promoting these in different projects as a best practices, but also during the conference, and during the workshop we had, other models were coming up. There is in Germany, in Saxony, I'm just checking the correct name, I don't want to misspell it. It's called Carus Consilium. We had a presentation from Olaf Müller, Dr. Olaf Müller, which is the general director, and they kind of work in the similar way, and they presented a lot of innovation that they have been managed to put through the clinical settings, and then like allowing a full market uptake of this innovation. And perhaps these outcomes can be stressed a bit more in the report that we are going to release.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Gianni. So